It happened over meatloaf. Not a dramatic moment. No slammed fists or raised voices. Just the low murmur of a family dinner, plates scraping, forks tapping. I had spent the better part of the afternoon preparing it. Real mashed potatoes, not the powdered stuff. Gravy with thyme, sautéed carrots glazed in honey. A salad no one touched. Kelly, my niece, had helped me set the table, folding the napkins the way I used to when I thought appearances mattered. Zach, 18, poured himself another glass of soda without asking. Laura, 16, stared at her phone in her lap, thumb scrolling just below the table's edge. Mary sat across from me, sipping white wine with the detachment of someone attending a dinner party she didn't plan. Then Zach looked up, shrugged, and spoke as if offering an observation about the weather. "You're just the guy who signs stuff." I looked at him and he didn't blink, didn't flinch. He stabbed a piece of meatloaf and chewed like he hadn't just driven a spike through my chest. No one said anything. Not Mary, not Laura, not even Kelly, though her eyes darted to me, wide and waiting. I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into the inside pocket of my blazer. Yes, I wore a blazer to dinner, a habit left over from years of trying to appear like a man of presence, and pulled out 2 folded sheets of paper. I laid them on the table like evidence in a courtroom. The first, a list, single-spaced, Times New Roman 11-point font, meticulously itemized. Rent, groceries, utilities, Wi-Fi, new phones, SAT tutoring, the copay for Zach's orthodontist. The $320 soccer cleats Laura had to have last fall. The broken back window I replaced when neither of them claimed responsibility. Even the Netflix subscription that Zach once complained didn't have enough new stuff. Laura glanced at the paper and looked away. Zach didn't even pretend to care. The second, a business card. Clean, unassuming. My attorney's name embossed in dark blue above the words, Family Law. I slid it across the table, slow and deliberate, until it rested between Mary's wine glass and her untouched salad. Still no one spoke. I had learned long ago not to expect apologies in this house. Gratitude, maybe, occasionally, but never remorse. That requires recognizing someone else's pain. I'm Daniel, 43, data analyst for a tech firm that's been restructuring since 2019. I live in a rental I pay for but don't own, and share it with people who, by blood, have no tie to me. Mary, my wife, though that title has started to feel more symbolic than sacred, brought 2 kids into our marriage. I brought a niece, Kelly, the daughter of my only sister, who died in a car crash 3 years ago. Kelly was 12 when she moved in. She's 15 now, quiet, observant, wiser than she lets on. Mary's kids had a father, Jason, a man with dimples and a tan and an Instagram account full of selfies with captions like #dadlife. Even though his contribution to that life was a check every other month and the occasional photo at a water park. But when a pipe burst in the garage, he wasn't there. When Laura had a breakdown about her GPA, it was me who sat outside her room for 3 hours until she unlocked the door. When Zach's car got towed from the school parking lot, I was the one who left work early, paid the impound fee, and listened to him rant about stupid rules. I have no biological children, just Kelly, who never called me dad, but once told a classmate I was her favorite adult. That was enough for me. For years, I believed that effort earned respect, that showing up, day after day without fanfare or thanks, would eventually stitch me into the fabric of this family. That someday, maybe not soon, but someday, they'd look at me not as an intruder, but as the reason their lives hadn't fallen apart. That someday never came. Instead, I got this moment, this dinner, this sentence. You're just the guy who signs stuff. No heat, no irony, just the casual cruelty of teenagers who've never had to understand the cost of anything. I didn't shout, didn't storm off. I just stared at the papers in front of me, wondering when exactly the balance had tipped, when generosity had turned into servitude. There had been signs, of course. There are always signs. Like the time Laura left a sticky note on the fridge that read, "Out of oat milk, signer." Or the argument with Zach where he shouted, "You're not even my real dad," So stop acting like it. Mary had waved it off. He's just upset. You know how teenagers are. I did. I just didn't know that their cruelty would be protected by the woman I slept beside every night. A few weeks ago, I overheard Laura whispering to her friend on the phone. Mom's already looking for someone better. This guy's just temporary. I didn't ask Mary about it. I didn't want the lie she would have offered in return. Respect is a strange currency. It doesn't accumulate. It isn't inherited. It's either given freely or it's withheld permanently. And once you realize it's not coming, you start to see everything else for what it really is. This wasn't a family. It was a contract. I provided. They consumed. Kelly told me once, "You don't have to try so hard with them. They've already decided who you are." She said it softly, like she didn't want to hurt me, but truth, even whispered, cuts deep. So that night, at that table, I didn't argue. I stood, pushed in my chair, and said only this, "Thank you for clarifying my role." Then I walked out. Later, in the quiet of my office, I poured a drink and sat staring at the spreadsheet I'd been updating for weeks. A running tab of everything I'd paid for since moving in. Every transaction, every compromise, every silent moment of disrespect translated into cold numbers. I printed it, not to make a point, to make a boundary. Because when a man is told he's nothing more than a wallet, the only thing left to do is close the account. There's a slow kind of erosion that happens when you live in a house that doesn't see you. Not a collapse, just a steady weathering of self. You start forgetting things. How to laugh at your own jokes, how to sit without tension in your shoulders, how to walk into a room without checking who's in it first. You wake up tired and go to bed numb. And worst of all, you stop noticing that anything is wrong. But I kept receipts. I always kept receipts. Every time Zach slammed a door in my face, I logged the cost of the groceries I had just bought him. Every time Laura said, "Whatever, it's not like you're in charge," I tracked the phone bill she never once paid. Every time Mary asked me to give them time, I opened the spreadsheet and added another row. Not out of spite, not even for revenge. Just to remind myself I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining this. It was real. There was the time I overheard Zach telling his friend, "He's just here because my mom can't afford the house on her own." There was the day Laura logged into her online store account on my work laptop and left it open. $600 of makeup and clothes. When I asked her about it, she rolled her eyes and said, "You're already paying for everything else. What's a little more?" Mary didn't say anything then either. She said, "I'll talk to them." But she never did. The next week, I found a sticky note on my office door that just read, "Guest." I left it there because it felt honest. There are worse things than being hated. At least hatred sees you. But indifference reduces you to background noise, to an accessory, to a line item. I began to take walks at night. Long ones, sometimes past midnight, just to avoid the house. Kelly would leave a light on for me. Only her. She started leaving tea on the counter too, covered in foil. She never said anything. Just little kindnesses. The kind that don't ask to be seen, but beg not to be ignored. I started leaving the receipts on the fridge. One a week. First, no one noticed. Then Laura started posting TikToks about living with a boomer landlord. One video zoomed in on my face while I mowed the lawn. The caption, "Our unpaid intern." It got 2,000 likes. The worst part? Mary laughed. She said, "Teenagers. You know how they are." I did. I just didn't know why she had joined them. I stopped kissing her goodnight after that. Not out of anger. Just fatigue. The same kind of fatigue that makes a man stop putting air in the tires when the whole car is going off a cliff. Then came the Sunday dinner. It was warm out. One of those unseasonably bright evenings that makes you forget, briefly, how cold people can be. I grilled ribs, made corn on the cob. Kelly baked a peach cobbler. Felt almost normal. We sat around the table in the backyard. String lights above us swaying in the breeze. Plates stacked high, lemonade sweating through the glass. I even laughed once. Kelly had made a joke about her algebra teacher. I don't remember what it was. But for a moment I felt like maybe things were turning. Then Zach said, "Thanks for the soda, but my real dad's teaching me how to file taxes next week." And Laura, without missing a beat, added, "Hopefully our next stepdad won't be a boring accountant." It didn't feel like a stab. It felt like surgery, precise, practiced, without anesthesia. Mary didn't look up. She cut into her ribs like nothing had been said. Kelly froze. I sat back in my chair, looked at them all, and realized I wasn't losing this family. I had already lost it. What followed wasn't rage. It wasn't a declaration. It was silent procedure. I stood up, walked into the house, sat down at my desk, and began the shutdown. One by one, I logged into every account. Rent, canceled. Internet, gone. Utilities, notified for end of service. Insurance, terminated effective next month. Laura's school tuition, removed my card. Zach's car insurance, cut. Every subscription, every auto payment, every invisible lifeline, I severed them all. Not out of malice, but because the equation had changed. I had been the man who signed, but no one had agreed to the terms. I walked back outside with my tablet in hand, laid it gently on the table, next to the peach cobbler. "Done," I said. They looked up, confused. "I've canceled everything," I said. "As of next month, I no longer reside here, legally or emotionally." Zach frowned. "What are you talking about?" I turned the screen toward them. The spreadsheet was open. The final tab titled, "Closure." I let them read it. Let the weight of years land where it belonged. Mary blinked. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being accurate." Laura scoffed. "You can't just leave." "I already have," I replied. "You just haven't caught up yet." Kelly stood beside me then, quiet, unmoving, not shocked, just ready. "Go pack," I said to her. She nodded and disappeared into the house. Mary finally stood. "Daniel, come on. Let's talk about this." I turned to her, steady. "Talk? You had a decade to talk. You chose silence. Now I'm choosing distance." Zach stood too, his voice rising. "You're gonna leave over a joke?" I shook my head. "I'm leaving over a pattern. And you wrote it in bold." Laura muttered, "Whatever. We'll be fine." I smiled. Not with cruelty, just clarity. "You will. You'll finally get what you wanted. A house without me in it. But it won't have heat, or Wi-Fi, or tuition, or a stocked fridge. It'll be real, though. No signatures needed." Kelly came out with her suitcase. Small, tidy. She had been packing long before I said the words. She stood beside me. I picked up my tablet, turned once more to look at the table. Mary looked like a statue. Zach looked like a child who just lost a bet. Laura was already back on her phone. I said, "Good luck." And we walked. We left at dawn. Not because we had to. Not because anyone was chasing us. But because there was nothing left to wait for. The night had been long, quiet, and full of empty rooms. No one came to stop us. No apologies. No tears. Just the faint sound of someone turning over in bed as the door clicked shut behind us. Kelly's suitcase rolled smoothly across the driveway gravel. I carried mine in one hand, a stack of folders under the other. Lease papers, bank statements, receipts, a quiet man's armor. We got in the car. I turned the engine. She looked at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are we home now?" And just like that, something broke. Or maybe something finally healed. I don't know. But I looked at her. This girl who had lost her parents and found nothing but indifference under someone else's roof. And I said, "Yes, yes, we are." We didn't talk much during the drive. We didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't heavy. It was mutual understanding. Two people who had been background noise finally deciding to change the station. The apartment was smaller than the house. One bedroom, one office I converted for Kelly, and a balcony overlooking the freeway. But it was ours. Every inch of it. No one rolled their eyes here. No one whispered behind doors. No one kept score because no one needed to. We had already lived the debt. The first night, we had cereal for dinner and watched an old movie on a laptop. She fell asleep before the credits rolled, her head on my shoulder, and I didn't move for an hour. Not because I was afraid to wake her, but because I didn't want the moment to end. For once, I wasn't performing. I wasn't earning. I was just existing. And that was enough. 3 weeks passed. No contact. No texts. No missed calls. I expected a reaction, a tantrum at least, but there was nothing. The silence was confirmation. I had been replaced faster than the Wi-Fi I disconnected. Then came the first message. Mary, we're short on rent. Can you help? No greeting. No apology. Just the same expectation in digital ink. I didn't answer immediately. I waited until Kelly got home from school. I showed her the text. She didn't say anything, just nodded once. So I took a picture of the spreadsheet, of the lawyer's business card, of the final tab labeled Closed Accounts, and I sent it. My response was only 6 words. This is the balance. This is the consequence. She didn't reply. A week later, Kelly came back from the mall, dropped her backpack and said, I saw Laura. I turned from the stove. Yeah, she's working. Coffee place by the food court. Wore a name tag. Looked tired. I didn't respond. Just stirred the sauce. She didn't see me, Kelly added. Or if she did, she looked away. That night, I went into the spreadsheet. Opened a new tab. Labeled it earnings. Not in dollars. In distance. Zach got a warehouse job. I heard through mutual contacts. Night shifts. Mary moved into a smaller house 2 neighborhoods away. Same school district, different zip code. A downgrade. 1 bathroom. No fenced yard. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just filed it away like everything else. Not revenge, just inventory. Kelly and I settled in. We started doing waffles on Saturdays. She picked the toppings. I washed the pans. No one bickered over chores. No one rolled their eyes. We took a weekend trip to the coast. First time I had seen the ocean in years. She stood at the edge, barefoot in the sand, and whispered, I feel like a real person again. Me too, kid. Me too. Bills still came. Life still kicked. But now every dollar spent was mutual. Every effort shared. I taught Kelly how to budget, how to change a tire, how to defend her space. She taught me how to breathe without waiting for permission. Mary texted again. This time it was longer. Daniel, I know you're angry, but the kids are still adjusting. They didn't mean everything they said. It's been hard without your support. Zach might have to drop his community college classes. Laura's grades are slipping. Please, just for a few months. Can you? I deleted it before I finished reading. Respect is not a backdated check. Zach emailed. Just 1 line. Guess you got what you wanted. I stared at it for a long time. Thought about replying. Thought about explaining that what I wanted was a family that didn't use me like a faucet. But I didn't send anything. Let him sit with it. Let them all sit with it. Because this is what they taught me. Kindness without boundaries is a liability. Sacrifice without acknowledgement is slavery. A man who signs everything but owns nothing will eventually stop showing up. And when he does, you'll realize he was never the extra. He was the foundation. Time passed. Not dramatically. Not in milestones. Just days, slow, unremarkable days that felt like silence finally stretched to its full width. The kind of silence you don't fear. The kind you earn. 6 months. That's how long it's been since I walked out of that backyard dinner, tablet in hand, carrying the final line of a ledger no one else cared to read. Half a year of no longer waking up with the weight of someone else's comfort on my chest. Half a year without just one more thing thrown on my plate. No more bills I wasn't thanked for. No more resentment served as side dishes. No more being the background noise in my own home. I thought I'd miss them. I don't. What I miss is the man I was trying to be. The version of myself who believed that consistency would win love, that effort could earn belonging. I miss the version of me who hadn't learned yet that some people see kindness as a credit line and loyalty as a weakness. But he's gone. Now there's just me. The man who finally understood that a family that needs your money but won't honor your presence is not a family. It's a system. One designed to drain you, then replace you. Kelly is different. Kelly sees me. She calls me D. Sometimes Uncle D. Once, after her science fair, she said, "You're more of a dad than anyone I've ever seen." She didn't know I cried after that. In the car, quietly, head against the steering wheel while she picked the music. We still do waffles on Saturdays. She still picks the toppings. I still wash the pans. She got her learner's permit 2 weeks ago. I taught her how to drive in the parking lot behind our apartment complex. She stalled once, then looked at me and said, "Thanks for not yelling." I laughed. "What would I yell for?" "Dunno," she shrugged. "Guess I'm just used to people being mad when things aren't perfect." "You're not a thing," I said. "You're a person. People get space." She looked at me for a long time. Then she drove another lap. "Mary hasn't texted since the last time. I assume she's too proud. Or too afraid. Maybe both." I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she picked up a second job. Admin assistant at a dentist's office. Part-time. Zach's taking night classes now, had to switch schools after losing the tuition support. Laura quit the coffee shop. Rumor is she dropped out of school altogether. That's what happens when the foundation leaves. I don't judge them, but I don't save them either. Because when someone calls you nothing, you believe them. And when they finally realize what nothing looks like in practice, that's not your crisis to solve. One day a letter came, handwritten. The envelope had no return address. Just my name. Inside, 3 sentences in a loopy, uneven script. "Daniel, I know I was cruel. I didn't understand what I was doing. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." Signed, Laura. No demands. No ask for money. Just those words. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer next to the receipts. Not because I forgave her, but because something about it was real. And real, even late, deserves a place. Kelly found it later. She didn't say anything. Just slid the drawer shut and hugged me. "Do you miss them?" she asked. I thought about it. "No," I said. "I miss the idea of them. And that's the truth. The idea of being part of something bigger. Of sitting at a dinner table and being more than just the guy who pays. Of being seen. Known. Needed for more than numbers and signatures. But that was never real. What's real is this. A small apartment that smells like coffee and laundry soap. A teenage girl who hums while she studies. A cupboard that has just enough because we don't take more than we need. A man who finally sleeps at night. I went to a bookstore recently. Found a book on parenting. Flipped through it. One line stood out. "Children will forget the toys, but they will remember who showed up." I closed the book. Set it back on the shelf. Because I already knew that. I had lived it. I had shown up. Again and again. I had filled their shelves, fixed their broken sinks, paid their way through everything from soccer to calculus. And I had done it silently. Proudly. Until I couldn't anymore. Until showing up without being seen became a form of slow death. You can't teach respect through gifts. You can't earn family with receipts. And you cannot, under any circumstance, keep setting yourself on fire just to keep everyone else warm. So now I live in peace. Not because I won, but because I stopped playing. And the question I leave with you is this. If your name is only wanted on the check, not the seat, not the heart, not the story, then what are you really part of? And how long are you willing to keep paying for access to a place that never let you in?